It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Frank Meir Loewenberg. And Frank, you were born in Hamburg in 1925 in Germany.
That's correct. I don't remember that. It was a Shabbat, and my mother always told me I was very cooperative, that I was born at half an hour after midnight. In those days, a hospital charge just started at midnight. If I'd been born 45 minutes earlier, there would have been another day of a hospital charge. So I was born on Shabbat, and the Brit was the following Shabbat. I'm told the party was Motzei Shabbat, and the menu, it was printed menu, still exists. I have it, but I don't remember any of this, understandably. Actually, I have very few memories of my early childhood. Whether I repressed it or I don't know. My earliest recollections probably are from vacations that we took every year at the Atlantic coast, one of the resorts. It was there in 1930 that my father took me on an airplane flying over the city for 20 minutes. Now, in 1930, these planes were open planes. I don't know anybody else alive today who flew in an open plane. I didn't like the flight.
But you remember that flight?
I remember that flight very vividly. Yes, this is one of my earliest memories. I have other memories. My grandfather, he was a school director and a poet, Jacob Loewenberg. He actually always liked to have a garden, but the apartment that he lived in didn't provide a garden. But they did have a opportunity to have what was called Schrebergarten outside of the city, and I remember vaguely that he took me once to the garden that he worked on, and I helped him doing whatever it was.
And here we have a picture of your...
Yeah, this is the grandfather I'm talking about.
And here you were a baby. This is when...
This is the earliest picture I think I have. Must have been a month after I was born.
With your parents and...
With my parents, and of course my brothers are not in that picture because they are considerably younger than I am.
And Meir, your family, were there many generations in Germany?
My family, were many generations of family. Some trace their origin back to the 30-Year War, which was in 1600 or something, I think. On my mother's side, they were more recent to Hamburg. My great-grandfather came to Hamburg from Posen. Posen is now in Poznan in Poland, but the Jewish population of Posen was German, culturally German. So, do they come from Poland, yes or no?
And your family, was it a very traditional?
No. Let me say, my grandfather, Jacob Loewenberg, threw everything away. He was a proud Jew, but observed nothing. And my other grandfather was a strictly Orthodox Jew. He was a gabbai in the Orthodox Bet Knesset, the synagogue. So when my parents got married, there was a scandal in the Jewish community. And both sides opposed the marriage. My grandfather would have nothing to do. My grandfather Loewenberg was an intellectual, one of the earliest PhDs from Heidelberg, and he looked down at the merchants. My mother's parents, who was a tobacco wholesaler. So, and similarly, my mother's parents were opposed to the marriage because they wanted their daughter to marry an Orthodox Jew. So my parents were very strong, and they went ahead anyhow. And they set up a traditional home compromise, but not strictly Orthodox, but a traditional home. That's what I grew up in. Never any question that Jewish observances, there was Shabbat, there was Kashrut, but my father went to teach on Shabbat. He worked in a public school, and there was classes on Shabbat.
Did you go to a Jewish school?
I started in public school in 1932, first grade and second grade. In the spring vacation, I was yanked out of the school and sent to the Jewish school. No explanation given, no preparation, no goodbye to my friends in the school.
This was in
This was in 1934.
In 34.
What happened is my father got dismissed from his public school job, and since he also was the president of the Jewish community, the Jewish school was delighted to offer him a job, to have an inside track to the executive of the Jewish community. And one of the conditions was that his children go to the Jewish school. So he had no choice, and he took me out of public school without any preparation, and I started in the Jewish school. And I was, for the next 4 years, from 34 to 38, I was in the Jewish school.
And your previous school, do you remember the name of the school? Or do you
Which one?
The public school.
Yes, Breitenfelder Straße. I can tell you some stories about the school. I had the good luck that my teacher, first and second grade, was a socialist, maybe a communist, but officially he was a socialist. Had no use for the Hitler takeover, which very soon was also visible in the school. I remember vaguely, but it's documented so I know about it, that after the Hitler takeover we had to assemble every morning in the schoolyard, all the students, and the Nazi flag was raised on the flagpole, and they sang the Nazi hymn. Part of the text of the hymn is Die Fahne hoch, the flag is flying high, meaning the Nazi flag. I already then had difficulties hearing, and I didn't hear the hoch correctly. I sang very loudly and with lust, Die Fahne rot, the red flag, the communist flag. My teacher thought it was delightful, and he told my parents about it. If I had had another teacher, we probably would all end up in a concentration camp. Actually, the Nazi takeover in 33, I didn't know about it. I heard about it, you know. Personally, I don't remember any incidents, but my father's diary does record that at one point a group of students my age attacked me for being a Jew. I repressed this completely. I don't have any memory of it, but it probably took place.
And did you remember having non-Jewish friends?
In school I had non-Jewish friends, yes. My parents always had non-Jewish friends. This stopped when I was yanked out of the school. I had no more contact with my previous friends.
And in the area that you lived, do you remember the street that you lived in?
Yes, I remember the street. Yeah.
What was
Funny
it
that
called?
you asked. When I visited Hamburg in 1996 as a guest of the city, I saw the house that I lived in all my life till we left in 38. When I came back 10 years later as the guest of the Jewish community for the 200th anniversary of the school, and I was a guest speaker, I had a television crew following the returning son. We came to the house was gone. There was a new high house there.
But you had seen it when you came back the first time.
I was shocked. The house was gone.
And do you remember the street it was on?
Oh yeah, I remember the street well.
What was it called?
Grindelberg.
And was it in a Jewish area?
It was a fairly Jewish area, yeah. A little bit on the... No, it was a Jewish area. Not the most Jewish area, but it was about a 25-minute walk from our house to the school. And no buses or anything in those days. We walked every morning. My father was a teacher. We always left late and we always came on time. That's why I learned how to walk very fast. And we walked through the most Orthodox Jewish section on the way to the school.
And May, can I just ask, when you went back, did you go inside the house? Did they let you go inside?
Did I do what?
The first time you went back to Hamburg,
Yeah,
and
no.
you saw your house?
No, no. I had a cousin there by that time that lived there that moved back. His house I went into, but others I had no contact with at all.
And you didn't go inside?
No.
But seeing it, did it bring back all the memories?
Well, it's there.
And the school, does the school still
The
exist?
school exists. I was in the school. It's now still a Jewish school.
What is the Jewish school called?
Talmud Torah Schule. It's a well-known school in Hamburg. It was next to the main Orthodox synagogue. That was torn down November 9th, 38.
In Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht.
And what was the name of the shul?
Boltplatz, after the name of the place where it was located. It was the first synagogue in Hamburg that was in a public square. Before that, all the synagogues were in back alleys. We did not go to that synagogue. We went to another synagogue that was in the back, behind some apartment houses. It didn't survive the war either, but the British destroyed it.
Do you remember the name of the synagogue that you went
Yeah,
to?
Beneckestrasse. The name of the street.
So here we have a picture from 1936.
It's a picture from 1936.
Do you remember having the picture taken?
Oh yeah, sure. I guess my parents invested in the photographs because I have also photographs of them from the same photograph the same year. They didn't know what would happen, and the fact of the matter is that when we left in 1938, we left suddenly because the story is that we were scheduled to leave in October of 1938. We had passage booked on a ship from Rotterdam in early November. But in September, 1st of September, there was a Munich crisis about the Sudetenland. That Hitler made an ultimatum that unless the great powers would give him Sudetenland, which was Czech, he would go to war. And that's when Chamberlain capitulated and came back with peace in our time. Well, this was Rosh Hashanah. The newspapers, the German newspapers, had all this on the ultimatum or so. So my father decided we're going to leave the day after Rosh Hashanah, unprepared as we were, because he didn't want a war to stop his emigration plans. We went by plane. I think I'm the only person that escaped from Germany by plane. We flew to Amsterdam and spent 6 or 8 weeks there because of his passage early November. The story is that this is important to know, that by 1938, and I didn't know this, I figured this out afterwards, and I spoke to people afterwards. At the time I knew nothing about this. By 1938, almost all Jews were ready to leave Germany, and Hitler encouraged emigration. The final solution was maybe in his mind, but not an official policy. So the Jews were ready to leave. The problem was no country wanted them. Not Palestine, not any other European countries, certainly not America. How did we get out? We had the good luck that my grandfather was one of 8 children. And this grandfather, Loewenberg, Jacob Loewenberg, was one of 8 children. And in the 1870s or 1880s, 7 of the 8 left Germany for the United States. In those days, America wanted immigrants, and they took anybody who came who was healthy. They left for economic reasons. It was difficult to get a good job. I don't think anti-Semitism was a major reason. It may be the reason why they couldn't get good jobs, but that I don't know. My grandfather also thought about the idea, played around with it, leaving, but in the last moment he said, no, I'm a German first, patriotic reasons, I'm going to stay here. But he kept in touch with his siblings. He even visited them in 1896. A school teacher visiting on summer vacation his siblings in the United States. This was unheard of.
And then he came back.
Then he came back too. Some of them sent their children to his school in Hamburg. So there was a good relationship. So when my parents decided, we got to get out, my mother went to Amsterdam to send a letter. My father didn't want the Gestapo to read the letter if it was mailed in Germany. She went to Amsterdam where her brother lived. We'd like to come to the United States. And within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we had all the necessary papers to get us an American visa. My father's cousin gave us the affidavit, but he didn't give us the affidavit because he already had issued 42 affidavits for other Jews. And the American government said, you can't be responsible for 42, now 43rd. We won't accept yours. So he talked his partner in giving the affidavit, and that's how we got out.
And it was a Jewish partner?
Yeah, it was a Jewish partner.
Can I just ask Meir, growing up in Germany, what do you remember about the atmosphere? Did you see German youth walking on the streets?
Look, I had a very normal, what I thought was a very normal childhood. I don't remember anything that smacks of anti-Semitism, Nazi persecution. I do remember that children that came from other parts of Germany to Hamburg told us terrible stories what happened to them in the towns where they grew up in. And they felt when they coming to Hamburg, this is freedom. Obviously it wasn't so. There were things that were not right also in Hamburg. One memory I have, which I didn't understand at the time, my mother wanted butter, and there was a shortage of butter. I don't know whether the cows didn't give milk or something. And she would send me in to a store where we never bought to buy a bread and a quarter of a pound of butter. Why didn't she go in? Afterwards I found out why. She didn't want to be thrown out as a Jewess. But she used me to do the purchasing. At the time I didn't think much of it.
Do you remember ever seeing Hitler Youth on the streets?
Oh yes, I want to be one of them. One of the things that upset my parents terribly when I was 8 years old. They asked me, what do you want to be? I want to be a Hitlerjugend. I admired them. They had all the fun, or we looked out of the window.
They had uniforms and they...
Yeah. I didn't understand what this is all about. I remember in 1932 at the Passover Seder, all of a sudden, marching outside of our house for about half an hour, the Nazis marched and sang, and Jews get out and all that. And we thought we couldn't keep on with the Seder. It was just too noisy. We thought this was in honor of the Seder. Found out afterwards it was Hitler's birthday. But again, this didn't affect me personally.
And you never had any incidents when you were walking on the street that...
No.
Did you think they knew that you were Jewish, or...?
I don't know. Now, what I don't remember, what I know with hindsight, I never went to the movies. Why didn't I go to the movies? Well, I found out after the Jews weren't allowed.
And do you remember seeing the signs on the benches, no Jews allowed?
No. We were in the parks almost till I left. I do not remember this. We stopped going to the summer resort that we went all these years in 1933. Why? 1932 we stopped. Why? Because the last time we were there was a sign out, Jews are not allowed here. This was before the government was taken over by the Nazis.
Already, that was
Yeah.
in 32.
So we went to someplace else. But again, I didn't know why we didn't go back. Nobody told me. I found this out in my research afterwards.
And when you were at school, did they discuss with you what was going on?
What's that?
When you were in school, as a school child,
Yeah.
did they discuss with you what was going on in Germany, or?
No, they wouldn't do that. I had a teacher that, I was old already, but must have been 10. Teacher who said he learned Italian by listening to the Italian radio. He thought he would emigrate to Italy or something like that. He didn't make it out. But no, they didn't discuss it. That was the outside world, and it probably wasn't safe to discuss it.
And did you have many friends in the Jewish school?
Have any what?
Did you have many friends when you were in the Jewish
Well,
school?
yes and no. I did have friends, yes.
And the area that you lived in your home, was it a mixed area, the home that you lived in?
Yeah, my parents always had non-Jewish friends. After a while, either they discouraged them or they themselves dropped the contact because it wasn't safe. To the end, I think there was only one or two non-Jews that they were in good contact with.
And when you left the public school, did any of those friends keep in contact with you?
No contact whatsoever.
Did you ask your parents why you're leaving, why you have to leave? Did you understand why you had to leave?
Well, I was told because my father changed schools. I didn't hear the whole story. Now, we did have one non-Jewish contact, our cleaning lady. The Nuremberg laws of 1936 forbade Aryans, non-Jews, to work in Jewish homes. And until that time, we always had a Christian maid. And suddenly we had no maid. It was at a Pesach. My mother said, I refused to make Pesach at home. It's the only time we went to a hotel. But soon thereafter, this lady showed up, whom I remember, and we called her Tante Frida, Auntie Frida. Non-Jews. I found out later, I didn't know this at the time. She and her husband were committed communists, and as communists, they could not get a job anywhere. And they certainly didn't pay any attention to the Nuremberg laws. So us providing a job was in a way a lifesaver for them. But we used to go out to their homes on Sundays, the day off, and she even came to the airport when we left. Now, you see these pictures. We left in, as I said, in a hurry, day after Rosh Hashanah. Nothing was packed.
So I'm going to
Left
show
the
picture
apartment.
again.
And this lady, Tante Frida, said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." And we didn't expect ever to see any of our property. About half a year later, a lift came to our home in Brookline, Massachusetts, and every single item in the house was on that lift. Pictures,
That's amazing.
china, everything. Furniture. Absolutely amazing. She did it. And my parents saw her after the war. They suffered greatly during the war for being communists. And she was a good guy.
That's incredible. And when were your brothers born?
My second brother was born in 29 and my third brother in 33.
So we have a picture. And what were their names?
Jacob is the middle brother, and the youngest brother is now known as Joseph. His German name is Jörn.
And that's with, in the picture you have your parents and you are on the left and your two
Yeah, I'm on
brothers
the
are in
extreme
middle.
left, and my fiancée was the other lady. That was about a couple of months before we got married.
And do you remember when your brothers were born?
I don't remember the 29, Jacob. I don't remember at all. My youngest brother, when he was born, my mother tells me, and I believe her, she prepared me, talked to me about her being pregnant and all that. I don't recall a thing. When my father came back from the hospital, "You have a baby brother?" Wow! It was great news to me. And at that time I was 7. So I don't know what happened.
And during this time, do you remember going to synagogue, to the synagogue?
Yeah, sure. I remember going to synagogue, especially the lady years. I left Hamburg a month before my bar mitzvah, 2 months before my bar mitzvah.
Before.
Huh? There was even some talk whether we should stay a couple of more months in Hamburg for the bar mitzvah. Good thing we didn't, because it would have been the Shabbat after Kristallnacht, when there wasn't a synagogue open. Yeah.
And did you learn your bar mitzvah when you were still?
I learned in Hamburg, and I learned in Amsterdam, and I learned in New York, and at the end, I didn't learn anything. And I got an aliyah, and I learned 10 psukim, and that was it. It was a very dismal affair. Some refugee provided meals, Shabbat meals, for $1 a plate, and there were 5 or 6 of us, and a cousin of my father's, and one friend from my school in Hamburg that left earlier for New York. That was it.
Were you very upset?
No, because I got the greatest gift in my life. My life. No other gifts. But I thank my parents. I knew that then already, that they gave me my life.
And Meir, do you remember ever hearing your parents speak about leaving Germany? Do you remember your parents speaking about leaving Germany? Or
No, nothing at all. The first inkling I had is when we had an appointment with the American consul in Hamburg. Before that, I didn't even know they were thinking about it. I mean, I was used to it. I felt my classroom was a railroad station waiting room. People left and people came. People left and came. Everybody left eventually. Not enough people left, but it was common already that people went on emigration.
And what happened with uncles and aunts, or extended family? Uncles and aunts, or in your family?
Well, those that left early went to Amsterdam. And except for my grandmother, they all got killed in Auschwitz. My grandmother went through the camps as an old lady in the 70s, and she came back. And after a year waiting, we were able to get her to America. She stayed with my parents for the next 10 years.
But she went through the camps?
They went through camps. Westerbork and Theresienstadt. And they didn't want old ladies in Auschwitz, so they didn't send her to Auschwitz. The others they sent to Auschwitz.
Did she used to talk to you about her experiences?
No, in the 50s people didn't talk about the experience. That was the result of the Eichmann trial that people opened up. They were in a way ashamed that they were alive. What did I do to deserve to stay alive when all the other young people didn't make it? No, she didn't talk about it. We here and there we got information about the experience, but.
And the other extended family didn't make it?
The extended family, most of them ended up in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. There's a cousin that made it back, you know.
Meir, can I ask you, the day that you left, do you remember that day?
Oh yes, that I remember.
Was it difficult to
No, it was a big adventure. With the plane with a closed cabin. And I remember there was a small plane, 20 seats. 10 seats were taken up by a Japanese delegation that came to Germany. And people didn't go on planes in those days.
How did your parents have the money to afford it?
Well, they couldn't take money out of Germany anyhow, so they had money. But my father said, I'm not going to cross the border 6 hours away from Hamburg where nobody knows what happens to us. I want to cross the border here with my attorney with us. And this is what happened.
And did you have time to say goodbye to your friends?
Yes, no.
It happened very quickly.
Very quickly.
And what did you take? Did you take any...
We took some clothing. Suitcase. What did we take on a plane? One suitcase.
Do you remember what you had in the suitcase?
No, I don't remember that.
And you never had regrets? Or...
Oh, no, I do. For the last 3 summers, spent them in Amsterdam with my uncle and aunt. And in 1938, when we went there, my aunt unpacked my suitcase. What is all these winter things doing here? My mother sent them out beforehand, not knowing what will happen, and they stayed there. We went back to Hamburg in August, and so some of the things were there already.
And at home, did you speak German or Yiddish at all?
No, we don't. I learned Yiddish in the States. German.
German. And did you know a little bit of Dutch?
I pretended I knew some Dutch, but I really, I can't, I don't know, I didn't. I would say that in the summertime, it's 2-3 weeks each time. I can't say it.
And what do you remember about arriving in Amsterdam?
What?
What do you remember about Amsterdam?
Well, I met Anna Frank. My cousin, she is about 4 years younger than I am, was in a class with Anna Frank. And there was a birthday party not Anna Frank, some other birthday party when I was there, and she schlepped me along. A 12-year-old boy, 8-year girls, who, and no interest at all. I don't remember Anna Frank there, but I saw photographs afterwards. Gee, I know this person after the war.
There was a tall girl, Hannah Goslar. She was her best friend. If you look at the pictures, you'll see a tall girl as well. That was Anna Frank's best friend.
Yeah.
Maybe she was at the birthday party as well.
Okay, but I don't remember that. I remember going to the birthday party, but I don't remember the people there. I remember that Tisha B'Av that year, it was the first fast day that I fasted a full day. I stayed with my grandmother, and I had 2 fans blowing at me all day long. Things like that, but...
and you remember going to shul in Amsterdam?
Going to shul in Amsterdam, I only remember, I don't remember the shul that my uncle went to, but on Yom Kippur, we left right after I was done on Yom Kippur, we went to a service in the concert hall. I guess it was an overflow of Minyan. And I saw somebody with a fountain pen in his pocket. I'd never seen a Jew in Yom Kippur in shul with a fountain pen. That made an impression on me. No, I don't remember the synagogue that my uncle went to.
And you remember going around Amsterdam, walking around the city, or?
Yeah, I remember the house and my cousin's house 2 blocks away. You know, and the walk there, and this kind of thing.
And how was the atmosphere when you were there? Because it was still independent. Germany hadn't invaded yet. It was.
They thought they were safe.
Yeah.
In World War I, they were neutral and they were safe. Boy, this madman will do the same thing. He'll skip around Holland. They were completely wrong. But they had no idea that they were in imminent danger.
And what happened to your family that were living in Amsterdam?
They all got killed except for my grandmother.
And your cousin, the one that took you to the body? Do you know what happened to her?
Yeah, Auschwitz.
They were deported?
Yeah, sure. All of them got deported. Some went underground. One cousin went underground and she survived. Another cousin went underground and he got killed by the people who took him in.
They killed him?
Yeah, killed him in the bathtub. Drowned him.
What?
Why, I don't know.
And the one that went underground, were they hidden by?
I think she was, went outside of Amsterdam, not in Amsterdam. She found some people that would take her in, and don't know the details.
And when you left to go to America, do you remember that day when you left?
Yes, it was a Friday night. We went on ship on Friday afternoon, and then we went back to the hotel. We went to a restaurant, made kiddush, and my uncle said, "You're almost by mitzvah, we can make mezumin." So it's the first time I've been mezumin. And next morning we went to the ship.
Where did it leave? From
Rotterdam.
And how did you get from Amsterdam to Rotterdam?
I managed by train. Nobody had a car in those days.
Do you remember saying goodbye to your family?
Yeah.
But you never imagined that you'd never see them again?
No.
And you didn't stay too long in Rotterdam?
No. We came the Friday morning and we left on Saturday morning.
And who would have believed that a few years later the whole of Rotterdam would be bombed by the Germans and destroyed?
Hamburg was also bombed.
And what was the name of the ship? Do you remember the ship?
Yeah, the Nordam. It doesn't exist today. Today's Nordheim is a different ship.
And going on the ship, was it an adventure? Was it?
It was a Chavaya, an experience. It took 8 days, and
with the other Jews on the ship?
There
as
were
well?
other Jews. We wanted to make a service on Friday night, and we asked to give us one of the halls to have the service, and they turned us down. Because ostensibly because we don't have a clergyman to lead the service. It was anti-Semitism, basic anti-Semitism. So we had a service in one of the cabins.
Who owned the ship? Was it a Dutch ship or a German?
Dutch ship, yeah.
And you could feel there was a bit of anti-Semitism. Did you have kosher food on the ship?
No. Well, there was the kosher food in those days was impossible to eat. After the first meal, we said we're going to eat vegetarian. The canned loof and that kind of stuff was impossible.
And you didn't get seasick or?
I never get seasick. That is I'll take it back. When it's a real storm, everybody gets seasick. But no, I have good legs, and but I remember on the last evening, my father took me on deck and says, "Take a look at the moon and the stars. In New York, you won't see that." He had no idea what New York is like. He thought it was big high rises and you don't see anything.
And at this time, did you know any English?
No, well, I took 3 years of English, but matter of fact, I did not know, could not speak English. The first school I went to, I had no idea what they were talking about. For 7 weeks, I sat there like a dummy. When I was bar mitzvah, the rabbi gave a bar mitzvah drasha in German.
In German. So when you arrived in America, you arrived in, was it Ellis Island or?
No, we arrived in Hoboken.
And what do you recall the day?
Immigration.
And was your family there to meet you?
We had a cousin of my father's and friends of my parents from Hamburg met us. And we stayed with a family, refugee family that rented out rooms the first few nights. Had one room for the 5 of us.
Where was this?
In Manhattan. And then the kids were shipped out. Not a foster home, but it's like a foster home. Because my parents wanted to find a job. It's a full-time job. They didn't find a job. That's another story. The first 2 years, my father didn't have a job.
Did he know any English?
No, he didn't know English either. He was a teacher.
How did he make a living?
Well, my mother got a job as a housekeeper with a family in Boston, and my father got through the Quakers, an internship in a private school for half a year, so that he would learn what American schools are like. And this is how he learned English. And
the job
we were found out.
And the job your mother got, was it in a Jewish home?
Yeah, it was one of the leading Jews in the Boston community.
Do you remember their name?
Yeah, Feuerstein.
And were they good to your mother? Were they?
Well, for a woman that never had worked a day in her life.
It must have been so difficult.
It was very difficult. Yeah, they were good, but it was very, very difficult.
And where did you go?
Well, I was sent for 7 weeks to a family in the Bronx.
A Jewish family?
Jewish family, a refugee family. And they took in teenage boarders for money.
Did you go with your brothers?
No. My brothers were sent to New Jersey with another family, but without paying for it. There's a limit to what my parents could pay. But my father was very upset because that family thought that the best thing for any refugee is to learn a trade, carpenter or something like that. My father was an intellectual. They go to university, not like this. So he yanked me out there, and the parents of the people that my brothers were at were willing to take me in. So the three of us were in the same town, but not in the same family. And my parents were separate in Boston, the Boston area. So for the first half year, we were all separated.
Did you have time to meet your parents? Did you have the opportunity?
My parents came every once in a while to visit us, yes. Now, I said I didn't understand a word of English. When I came to this town in New Jersey, Bayonne, they decided to, because I didn't talk English, to put me in the class of the dummies. There were 13 parallel classes, and I was with the dummies. Within a month, everybody copied my homework. And I picked up the English well. Now, this Bayonne Jewish community was not too assimilated. And with the parents that I stayed with, I had a choice. I better learn either Polish or Yiddish, because they don't talk English. So I figured I don't need Polish, I'll learn Yiddish. So I'm the only one in my family that learned Yiddish and speaks Yiddish.
But from German to Yiddish, it's
easier. But my parents wouldn't know which side it is.
And were they a traditional family?
Yeah.
And they took you to shul and to...
They took me to shul.
Which shul did you go to?
I don't know the name of the shul. I was there less than half a year. Something or other. Sfat, maybe, I don't know.
And in those days, do you remember any of the rabbis in where you were?
Well, I remember the rabbi in the shul in New York, the Jewish Center, Rabbi Jung. But in Bayonne, I don't remember a rabbi. I don't know whether there was a rabbi.
And when did you become a family unit?
Then in the summer of 1939, my parents said enough is enough. My mother stopped working, set up the home. I took an apartment. That's another shock. The real estate agent took them around to look at apartments. He said, on this street, we're not going to stop. My mother says, why? It's restricted. What is restricted? They had no notion about the restricted neighborhoods, restricted streets, restricted against Jews, which was very common in America in those days.
And was this in New York?
In Boston.
In Boston?
Brookline. And in Hamburg, there was no such thing as restricted.
And in Boston, there was?
Yeah. It wasn't until the 1950s that it became illegal in the States. Lovely country, America. Not for us. Anyhow, she set up the home. My father still didn't have a job. The first year, he had a substitute job in Bennington College for somebody who was a sabbatical, and he hoped that it would turn into something permanent. It didn't. Second half of the year, he had nothing. Gave lectures and so on. And then he finally got a, because of the war, there was all of a sudden a shortage of teachers. America entered the war, and he got an appointment at a very prestigious private school.
Was it a public school or
No, private school.
A Jewish private school?
No, Episcopalian. He was the first Jewish teacher they ever had And it was only a 1-year appointment. They said, don't bring your family out. It's only for 1 year. He stayed there 20 years. The family moved out the next year.
And when you got to Boston, did you go to a Jewish school?
What's that?
Did you go to a public school?
Public school. Public school. The only time I went to Jewish school was the 4 years in Hamburg.
Only time. And when you went to the public school in Boston?
Brookline. Brookline is not Boston. It's a suburb of Boston. And in those days there was, I don't know, 80% Jewish or 70% Jewish. It was a Jewish neighborhood.
Were most of your classmates, were they Jewish?
Many of them.
And you acclimatized easily? You made friends?
Yeah, I got no problems at all in that score. My homeroom teacher was a baptized Jew.
And did anybody ask you about coming from Germany? Was that an issue ever? Or?
Yeah, my friends wanted to hear about it.
Were they mainly American?
Yeah, they're most Americans, yeah. There were other refugees. It was a small refugee congregation.
And Meir, your family, did they mix mainly with other refugee families?
What's that?
Your family, your parents, they mixed
They
with friends?
mostly contacted the other refugee families because it was still easier for them to talk German.
Mm-hmm. And at home, did you speak German?
The early years they must have. It changed during the war.
And this is a hard question, Meir, I'm sorry. But when did you first find out what was really going on in Germany and with the war?
I did not know anything about it, but because that time I was already in the Navy, American Navy, as a soldier fighting the war. So I didn't know anything about it. I recall that sometimes I was at Columbia must have been 1945. Must have been 1945. It hit me all of a sudden, a news report, something that I decided I have to go home to comfort my mother because I thought they were all killed. They knew about it. They didn't wait for me to come. But I did not know about it. I had no idea.
It wasn't in the newspapers what was going on?
But in 1945 it was.
But before that, during the war?
Not much. It was generally suppressed. There was information available as early as 42.
Yeah.
We know now.
But they suppressed. The New York Times admits that they suppressed the news that was coming through. Many papers suppressed.
Now, to add insult to injury, I got into the Navy because I figured it's better to have it bed at night than be in trenches. That was my thinking.
When did you graduate?
Graduate where?
From high school.
High school in 1943.
And which school were you?
In Brookline, public school, public high school.
Do you know the name of the school?
Brookline High School. It's the only one in town. And I went straight to Harvard, and I got in 3 semesters before I got drafted.
In Harvard, in the university?
Yeah. I got 3 semesters in, summer, fall, and spring.
What did you study at Harvard?
History and literature.
Wasn't it very difficult to get in, to be accepted?
Yeah, but I got accepted.
And being Jewish, was that an issue? Or?
They had a Jewish quota, but they obviously juggled the kind of Jews they wanted. If it's the son of a master from Groton School, this is probably what they wanted. I didn't think about it. I personally, made no difference to me, and I did not encounter any open anti-Semitism in Harvard.
You never encountered?
But I came into the Navy.
Why did you leave? Did you have to leave?
What?
Did you volunteer to go into the Navy?
No, I was drafted.
You were drafted?
Yeah. When 18, you go in. And I went to boot camp to Ranut, and they made an American citizen out of me. The hurry-up procedure. I was the first one in the family who became a U.S. citizen.
And were you proud to become a citizen?
I was delighted, yeah. Now, assignment after Ranut.
Your assignment?
I wanted this or that. Former enemy aliens go only to one thing, Seabees, construction battalion. All of a sudden, I'm an enemy alien?
Because of your German origin.
But come on, I'm a Jew.
Yeah.
Well, I was in the construction battalion with two left hands. They didn't know what to do with me. Shipped me out, and I went in the Pacific, east. Finally ended up in the Battle of Iwo Jima, which was one of the fiercest battles. I survived it. Then I saw a notice in the unit paper, they're looking for candidates for officer training. So I applied. And my commanding officer says, delighted, I can get rid of you. I don't know what to do with you anyhow. And you're a college man. Sure you're going to make it. Absolutely true. 3 weeks later, I flew back, what took 2 months going out by ship. I flew back in 3-4 days. In those days, a plane could only stay aloft so long. So from island to island to island, finally I got back to San Francisco. I called my parents up. They didn't believe that I was there. Then they got lost sight of me because I was in a camp, and then I was assigned to Princeton University, and it took 7 days train ride. I was no contact with my parents, and they thought they didn't know what happened to me, but everything worked okay. So I was in Princeton for 2 months, and then Columbia. They convinced the Navy Harvard is a better degree than Columbia, should send me back to Harvard. They got back to Harvard.
And you got your degree at Harvard?
I got my degree at Harvard in history and literature, with most of my courses in naval sciences.
And in those days, it was one of the top Ivy League universities.
Yeah, sure.
And did you encounter any anti-Semitism at Harvard?
No. Matter of fact, I was excused from the eating plan because I said I keep kosher. Very accommodating.
And Meir, what were you going to do with your degree?
What to do with my degree? I went on. I got one professional school, social work school at what was then the New York School of Social Work. It became, while I was at Columbia School of Social Work. And later on I got my doctorate.
And when did you got married in?
We got married in 1950.
So here we have the picture.
And one of the conditions of us getting married was that we go to Israel.
Were you always Zionistic?
No, I was from a non-Zionist family. Anti-Zionist before Hitler, non-Zionist. My wife came from a Zionist family.
Do you remember the partition plan in 47?
What's that?
The partition plan in 47?
Oh, yes. Partition plan in 47. November 29th. Shabbat. I was living in a student dormitory on an island in New York Harbor. I served as the Jewish chaplain from Hillel. My roommate was a non-observant Jew, and he had the radio on. So I heard the whole debate and the final vote. And somehow or other we knew there was a celebration going to be in the Manhattan, in Manhattan somewhere, one of the big halls. I forgot the name of it. And we went down there to that celebration, and I saw Chaim Weizmann go up and gave a Shechayona bracha b'shem malchut. This was great. That was the UN, the only time the UN did something decent for Israel. I remember in the following May, I saw somebody off on a boat. This was a Friday. Somebody was going on a boat to somewhere in Africa for the joint. And as I came back from the harbor, I saw the headlines in the papers that Truman had recognized the state of Israel. Wow! It was first country to recognize Israel. This was a great achievement. Anyhow, we agreed on going to Israel. And
where did you meet your wife?
At work. She was a kindergarten teacher in the Jewish Community Center where I was a program director.
And was she born in America?
She is an American girl, yeah. Her sister came on Aliyah in 1948, but they came back in 1951 because it was too difficult. It didn't faze us, so in 52, we took the Queen Mary
I'm just
to
going to show
Israel,
these photos.
completely unprepared.
And I'm sure your parents were very happy with the marriage.
They were very happy with the marriage. They were very unhappy when I was going to Israel. They thought they would never see us again. Things are very tough in the times of Tzena. No job, no housing, no food. I lost weight every day. And this was, we left in the summer of 51, and we came back in 52.
So
Couldn't make it. Said, well, we come some other time, but this is not for us now.
But you were determined to return.
Yeah. There was a question on Pesach. We decided Erev Pesach that we are going back, and we bought tickets for a ship sometime 2-3 weeks later. What do we do on the 8th day of Pesach? Do we keep it or not keep it? And I turned to Rav Pesach Frank, the rabbi of Yerushalayim, Rabbi. What do I do? I explained the whole situation. He looked at me and says, Pam Yerushalmi, Lenetzach Yerushalmi. 7 days. That's the schooler that I took with me back to America. And 20 years later, thank God, we properly prepared with a job and 4 kids and everything else. We made Aliyah.
And where was your job when you came here?
The first job was at Tel Aviv University, at the School of Social Work. They didn't tell us that it was a 2-year appointment. They methodically made many of those appointments, and all of us fell in the pach. At the end of 2 years, sorry, we can keep you, but not at the rank that we employed you. I was an associate professor, and there's no way you'll be an instructor. I says, no go. Fortunately, it worked out. Bar Ilan took me as an associate professor, and next 20 years I was a Bar Ilan.
And when did you come to Efrat?
About 22 years ago, after I retired.
So I'm just going to, these are these beautiful photographs through the years.
Which is it?
From it goes from 1953. You have beautiful photographs, 62, and then when you made Aliyah,
yeah, we made the Aliyah with the 4 kids, and thank God.
and you remember the 6-Day War and the 73 War,
73 war? Oh, yes, I do remember it.
and the 6-Day War as well.
Huh?
The 6-Day War in 67. In 1967, the 6-Day
No,
War.
I wasn't there in
I know, but
67.
you
I remember
in
it.
America?
I was looking for a place in New York. I mean, I had a job and I was looking for an apartment. I couldn't understand why they, when I went down inside Young Israel in Flatbush, why they weren't concerned about what's happening in Israel. They were concerned about something else that happened in New York.
And when you came to Tel Aviv University, did you stay in Tel Aviv?
We had an apartment in Petah Tikva.
And you were happy in...
Oh yeah, Petah Tikva was fine. We lived there for 15 years. We couldn't take the climate afterwards. So we moved up to Yerushalayim.
And your kids were happy there as well?
They weren't really there. Well, the 2 younger ones were there. The older 2 went in college. Lived university and then went back to America to get the doctorate. So they never lived in Petah Tikva. The 2 younger ones did. But
And you would visit your parents and they came and visited you?
my parents came every year. Till about, my father died in 87. Then after, my mother only came once. She wasn't able to come at all.
Meir, can I ask, looking back, when you went back to Hamburg, when you went back to Germany, was it difficult to go back? Was it emotionally...
Well, the first time we went back, you look at people in the street, and who are they? What did they do when they persecuted Jews? Not me personally, but it was we were the guests of the city of Hamburg, and they took us on a prepared 7-day trip outings to all kinds of places. No, I don't think it was difficult, but I did feel that I had to go to mikveh when I came back.
And if I can ask you, when you first found out, it was very late that you really understood what had happened in Europe. During the war, did you have your parents didn't discuss?
There was no contact, there was no communication between the German occupied territories and America. The last letter we got from my uncle was in 1941.
And it must have been devastating for your mother to find out what happened to...
Yeah.
Did she ever come to terms with it, or it must have been so...
Yeah. Never come to terms with it, but...
Meir, can I ask you, it's such a difficult question. People have asked, even Biden mentioned, even President Biden, when he was here in Israel, he said, he would ask, why did we not bomb the railroads?
Yeah.
These are such questions that no one...
Yeah, well, look, first of all, you have to recognize that our conception of who Roosevelt was completely wrong. We always thought he was God's gift to America.
When did you realize that he wasn't so good?
I think much after he left.
Do you remember, or did you have any knowledge about the rabbis that marched in Washington when there was a group of Orthodox rabbis that came to march in Washington and Roosevelt didn't come out to meet them? It was a very well-known...
No, I don't remember it. I don't remember it. I didn't hear about it then. I know about it now, but I didn't hear about it then. But he was basically an anti-Semite.
His wife was good, Eleanor.
Eleanor was a slightly different story. Slightly different story. But it didn't make any difference.
And Meir, I have to ask you, because it's so in the news, what's happening in Harvard today after October the 7th?
No, it's not just Harvard. It's
all
the whole university scene. I don't understand it.
You were at Penn, you went to Columbia as well?
Yeah.
So you were at the top Ivy League universities. Yeah. Can you fathom that this would have happened?
It's a completely different world, and I have no contact with it at all. I mean, I've been here 52 years, and the country has changed so completely. Israel too. Mm-hmm. But
it must have hurt you very much when you hear what's happening at Harvard.
Well, I've cut my links with Harvard 30, 40 years ago when they didn't take my son. I thought the son of a graduate should get
preferential.
A little bit preferential for graduate school.
And they wouldn't accept him?
They wouldn't accept him. Then I cut my...
And you're happy with your decision that you came to live in Israel?
Yeah. What a question.
And Meir, if I can ask you, what message do you impart to your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and to the future generations? What message? You've lived through so much, you've seen so much, and you've lived through epic times in Jewish history.
Look, you have to be in your own home. This is your home. The other places is becoming more and more evident, but was always evident really, but the people didn't realize they're not your home. You're tolerated or not tolerated guests. You live in your own country, for better or for worse. It's not everything is good. Someday it'll be better, but it's ours.
And Meir, just above you, you have such a beautiful picture of your family.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem,
it's still growing.
Baruch Hashem. And Meir, in all what you went through, you always kept your emunah. You always kept faith in Hashem. You always kept your emunah.
Well, I had periods of doubt. Yeah. As a teenager, I had periods of doubt.
But you go to shul every day and you...
No, I do. Most of my life.
Meir, I just want to thank you. I'm so incredibly grateful to you. If I can just thank you. For me, this has been such an honor and a privilege. There are no words to describe my appreciation.
Okay.
And you should just, from this little boy in this picture from Hamburg in 1936, and now, sure, we 2000, going on for 2024. Man, you should just have mazel and bracha at Meir Vesrim. And your parents were remarkable people.
They certainly were.
That they had the, to leave and it saved your life. You got the biggest present. So Meir, I want to thank you so much, and you should just be well and have just nachas from your beautiful family.
Amen.
And Meir Vesrim in good health and mazel and bracha. And just to be well.
Okay.
And I really appreciate tonight.